Email included a reference to the president's top campaign donor, Elon Musk, the wannabe occupant of Mars. The email said, quote, "These tactics you are employing and the actions you have taken are illegal and unconstitutional. Quote, if upon reflection you feel like now would be a good time to take a vacation and resign from your position, please reply all to this email and put in the subject line, quote, I'd like to occupy Mars." The acting head of the EEOC apparently did not do that. Nevertheless, credit for the question. Humor, determination, showing up, speaking out. Tonight we have with us two of the high-ranking, big-deal government officials who have thus far stood up to Trump and what he's done. First, we are going to speak with Ellen Weintraub. She has been a member of the Federal Elections Commission since 2002. She has chaired the commission 4 times. This week, President Trump attempted to fire her. Ms. Weintraub responded in a post on Twitter, quote, "Received a letter from POTUS today purporting to remove me as commissioner and chair of the FEC. She said, quote, "There's a legal way to replace FEC commissioners. This isn't it. I've been lucky to serve the American people and stir up some good trouble along the way. That's not changing anytime soon." Joining us now is Ellen Weintraub, chair of the Federal Elections Commission, who Trump claims to have fired. She begs to differ. Commissioner Weintraub, I really appreciate you being here. Thanks for joining us.
Pleasure to be here, Rachel.
Why do you say this firing was not legal?
Well, if you look at the Federal Election Campaign Act, there is nothing in there about removing FEC commissioners other than in the normal course, which is you can replace them when their terms have expired by appointing a new commissioner who gets confirmed by the Senate. That's the way you replace FEC commissioners. There's nothing in there that says, or if the president doesn't like that particular person, they can just be fired.
So now that the president has sent you this letter purporting to remove you, but under terms in which he's not legally allowed to remove you, I imagine that you consider yourself to still be a commissioner. But how does this get settled? How do you plan to move forward here?
Well, I'm still considering all of my options at the moment, but I will tell you that my email has been turned off, my computers have been taken, my pass, I believe, no longer gets me into the building.
When you say your computers have been taken, meaning removed from your office?
Well, I think they're still in my office, actually, but I can't get into my office anymore.
I see. Do you think it is Trump's intention to dismantle the FEC in a fundamental sense, to rebuild it in his own image? I mean, we've seen him wholesale fire all different kinds of officials that he's not allowed to fire. Some people are suing. Some people are trying to show up to work anyway. You say that you're considering your options. Do you have an understanding or even an informed theory as to what you think the end goal is here?
I really don't know. At the moment, there are still 4 sitting commissioners, so there is a bare quorum. There is supposed to be 6, no more than 3 from any one political party. It's supposed to be an independent, bipartisan commission, and the chairmanship rotates from one party to the next every year. The Republicans always get the election year, and that means the year after the election year, there's usually a Democrat who is in the chair, and it just happened to be my turn, and I was duly elected by my colleagues, and that's why I should be still sitting in the chair. But right now, there are still 4 remaining commissioners, so he has not disabled entirely the commission yet, but this is not the way an independent agency is supposed to work. This is not the kind of agency where, unlike many other agencies in government, he doesn't get to come in and immediately put in his own chair of the agency. That just isn't the way the place was set up. It was designed by Congress to ensure against political machinations that would interfere with the running of the agency. And that is why Congress set it up so that if a commissioner term has expired, they can stay until they get replaced by another commissioner, so the seat doesn't go vacant. And that gives the Senate an opportunity for advice and consent. In this case, since mine is a Democratic seat, it should give the Democratic leaders in Congress an opportunity to weigh in on who they think ought to be sitting in the seat. And it has never, in the 50-year history of this commission, we're celebrating our 50th anniversary this year, this has never happened before.
It's never happened before. And there's been so much partisan fighting over the FEC. And there's been so much like bad faith fighting over the FEC by various political factions over the years, and in other circumstances in which I have interviewed you on television about those shenanigans. But this is something that's never happened before. You know, if he does remove more commissioners, if he is trying to disable the FEC. Can you explain to our viewers in plain language what that would mean if the FEC effectively went away, if he was able to shut down the functioning of the commission?
The FEC is the agency that was designed to follow the money and give the American people transparency about who is funding political campaigns at the federal level and what they do with that money. And if the FEC can't do its job, then the public is left in the dark. There is already too much dark money in our system. And without an FEC, there would be even more. Basically, all of it would be dark. And there would be no one out there to enforce the law. If they leave the staff in place, they can keep the database up and running. But the staff is not capable under the law, without the commissioners there, of enforcing the law in any meaningful way, in any way at all, if somebody violates the law. It's a law enforcement agency, and the law ought to be followed. The agency needs to be there to enforce the law, and the laws ought to be followed in the ways that the commission is constituted.
Ellen Weintraub, chair of the Federal Elections Commissioner, longtime commissioner on the FEC. Ellen, I don't know. As you say, you're keeping your options open in terms of how you plan to move forward here now that the president purports to have fired you by means he's not allowed to fire you by. But please keep us apprised.
I'm joined now by one of those Democrats, Congressman from Maryland, Glenn Ivey. Congressman, welcome, sir. And I know you were on the very powerful Appropriations Committee, which is tasked with regulating government spending. But it appears that Elon Musk and his Doge department have stepped in to take on some of that job. The president said yesterday his work is going to lead to a nearly balanced budget for the first time in years. Is this actually maybe just temporary pain for a long-term gain? I'm curious your take on Musk's role.
Doesn't appear to be. It looks more like a wrecking ball, kind of a plow type of approach, as opposed to something surgical that would reduce the deficit. Bill Clinton, I believe, was the last president to balance the budget, and he didn't do anything remotely looking like this. I think this is more of an effort to really tear down the government, attack federal government workers, create big distractions from his ultimate goal, which is to try and extend the $4 trillion tax increase that lies at the heart of their agenda for this second term of his, and to so-called attack on the deep state.
You mentioned those federal workers, and in fact, your district sits next to Washington, D.C. You have thousands of federal workers who live in your district. I know you joined the protest this week over what you call President Trump's attack on the federal workforce. You held a town hall with federal workers. What are your constituents telling you about the impact of all this?
Well, I mean, they're very concerned, very confused. The quote unquote buyout offer was really misleading in a variety of ways. And so a lot of them just didn't understand what was actually on the table or how it might impact them. For those of you that don't know, he basically was telling federal employees to resign but still get paid for the next 6 to 8 months. I don't think he's got the authority to do that. Sounds like it's illegal as well, because, that's like the Sopranos have no-show jobs, but the federal government doesn't. And also there's a question about whether, if Trump reneges on the deal, which is his modus operandi, whether they'd be able to enforce the agreement. And I don't think there's a provision in there that allows it. So it's a bad deal all the way around for federal government workers.
So as these executive orders take effect, we're not seeing widespread protests in the streets, leaving pushback for the courts and Capitol Hill to do it. What does the Democrats' playbook look like? How do you prioritize your efforts right now?
Well, the courts have been tremendously effective. I mean, I think, For example, if that effort to cut off all federal funding across the board that he tried to do, I guess that was like a week and a half ago, if that had actually stood and moved forward, you would have seen people losing their minds, because that's cutting Title I. That's teachers in classrooms. That's, Meals on Wheels. That's childcare. I mean, all across the board, assistance for veterans, potentially even, depending on how the cuts were done, TSA and Border Patrol. It was just a nutty thing to do. But then an injunction was put in place and it's been extended. So, we've avoided that level of disruption. But I think as long as we can continue to have these injunctions go into place and hopefully stay in place, we can work this out in a way that's consistent with the law and the Constitution, as opposed to his approach, which is
Government workers are struggling all across the country, and there is a large density of federal workers in Virginia, said Kevin Cooper, a political director with the American Federation of Government Employees. In a statement, these folks are dedicated civil servants who are being put out of work. I have no doubt that they have been looking to upcoming election to see who speaks out in their defense and is willing to champion pro-worker, pro-union issues. Whether that view is widely shared will be tested in Virginia, where a former Democratic congressman, Abigail Spanberger, and Republican Lieutenant Governor Winsome Early Sayers are the leading contenders for